We would like to thank the Special Envoy of the Secretary General for Syria, Mr. Geir Peterson, and Under-Secretary General for Humanitarian Affairs, Mr. Tom Fletcher. We thank them for their detailed briefings on the situation in the Syrian Arab Republic. We also listened to the information which was provided by Jumana Saif. Since the time elapsed since December last, we have been able to see that the change of power in the Syrian Arab Republic unfortunately did not rid the people of this country from numerous humanitarian, socioeconomic problems and external threats. They remain relevant and they're even growing. Successful tackling the challenges the country is facing will determine to a large degree what the future of this Arab Republic will be, and therefore the Syrians are of vital need of a multilateral and depoliticized support from the international community. The situation in Syria today is characterized by continued economic decline and frequent outbreaks of violence. Data about the number of people in need, the situation when it comes to food security and healthcare show that putting the country back on the path towards sustainable development is only possible if there is an end to hostilities everywhere and if there is a reform undertaken. There is no alternative to that. Syrian people should finally receive the right for decent peace, life and well-being. Mr. President, a very worrying development for us was the continued clashes in Aleppo and the northeast of the country. They have taken lives of people and destroyed civilian infrastructure. But what was a real shock for all of us was a recent outbreak of violence in the coastal areas of Latakia and Tartus, where hundreds, if not thousands, of civilians died, Alawites, Christians, and other ethnic and religious minority representatives. This also provoked a new displacement of civilian people who were compelled to leave, sometimes outside of Syria. Social networks have a great deal of shocking information showing the crimes committed against civilians. And of course, the Security Council cannot ignore all of this. In this regard, we are grateful to all members of the Council for expeditiously agreeing a document which was undertaken on our joint initiatives with the American colleagues, the presidential statement which condemns the mass killings in Latakia and Tartus and emphasizes the need for a swift, transparent, independent, impartial, and comprehensive investigation in line with international standards so as to hold all perpetrators accountable. In this context, I would like to note that the President of Russia, Vladimir Putin, sent a letter to the head of the Syrian state, Ahmed Bashar, and in this letter he supports the efforts to stabilize the situation as quickly as possible to ensure its sovereignty, independence, unity, and territorial integrity. And we hope that the measures undertaken by Damascus, including establishing a fact-finding and investigative commission for the coastal areas and also establishing a high committee for civil peace will help stabilize the situation in the region. Of course, this is a priority in order to build a firm foundation for the new Syria, the kind of Syria where the rights of all ethnic and religious minorities will be guaranteed. And we count on receiving information about that from the Syrian authorities and also count on their close cooperation with the envoy in the context of the provisions we have in the presidential statement. The humanitarian situation in the coastal areas impacted, especially in the rural areas, remains very, very difficult. According to UNICEF, there is an acute shortage of food there. There's a limited access to vital services. School attendance remains at a very low level. And many civilians had to flee in search of personal safety. What we need to make sure is not just that the crisis doesn't spread further, but we also have to make sure that there is no persecution on representatives of ethnic and religious minorities who have been living on those lands. In the light of the recent events in Latakia and Tartus, we think it would make sense to enhance the UN work to extend assistance to the people living in the coastal regions especially since, as far as we understand, there aren't major issues, there shouldn't be major issues with humanitarian assistance access. Damascus has been showing a constructive approach when it comes to interacting with humanitarians. Given this, we should perhaps be thinking about growing the OCHA presence in Latakia and Tartus, including possibly an opening up an additional OCHA sub-office there. Take into account that the process of humanitarian architecture reform in the Syrian Arab Republic has been launched. Such measures would help keep the situation under control and regularly assess the needs of the people and react to them immediately, including in case the situation worsens. Mr. President, we were following with concern the recent clashes on the border between Lebanon and Syria. In the course of those clashes, artillery was used and regular army units on both sides. We welcome the decision to have a ceasefire, which came out after a phone call between the ministries of defense of Lebanon and Syria. And we call upon Damascus and Beirut to undertake all of the steps necessary to prevent any further incidents on the border and to cut the risks of them growing uncontrollably. A no less destructive role is also played by continued Israeli airstrikes against the territory of Syrian Arab Republic and Israel's continued occupation of territory by West Jerusalem. We condemn the strikes by the IDF, as a result of which more than 20 people were killed and wounded in the south of Homs. And we call on West Jerusalem to return to upholding their obligations under the 1974 disengagement of forces agreements and to withdraw their units from the buffer area and other areas taken since December 2023 in Syria. The new Syrian leadership has stated many times that they are ready to build peaceful relations with all of its neighbors without exception. But Israel, through its action, has put paid to that and is strengthening those voices which are radical inside Syria. Such an approach in the long term is not going to help strengthen Israeli security. There is also a terrorist threat which remains in the country, and we call on Damascus to pay special attention to it and make sure that ISIL and other terror groups do not take root in Syria. We're particularly concerned by the issue of foreign terrorist fighters who have turned up there, including in the clashes in the west of the country, and decisive measures against them should be undertaken immediately. We note that on the 10th of March, there was a framework agreement signed in Damascus between Ahmed Shara and the commander of the SDF, Mazloum Abdi. It provides for the return of the Trans-Euphrates under central forces and the integration of Kurdish militarized units under into government forces. Good faith implementation of these agreements will help strengthen the unities of Syria and the threat and the trust by other ethnic religious minorities to Damascus, as they hope that their rights will be protected within the new Syrian state. We say here once again that the road to sustainable normalization in Syria lies through inclusive inter-Syrian dialogue aimed at national agreement, reconciliation, and advancing comprehensive political settlement in line with the basic principles we have in Security Council Resolution 2254. This process should be implemented through taking well-considered, balanced, and genuinely inclusive decisions, and they need to be met by moves on the part of the international community aimed to improving the economic situation in the country and heightening the quality of life of ordinary Syrians. We are convinced that the UN has to play a key role in accompanying a Syrian-owned and led political process. And we would like to express our full support to the efforts in this regard undertaken by the Special Envoy Geir Pedersen. Mr. President, in his message to Ahmed Shara, President of Russia Vladimir Putin reaffirmed our readiness to develop practical interaction with Damascus on all of the issues we have on our bilateral agenda so as to strengthen the traditionally friendly relations between our countries. And we hope that the Syrian people will be able to finally overcome all of the challenges the country is facing. Russia is extremely interested in seeing this done.